Hello, today is Sunday, March 29th, and if you've been paying attention, there was a military exercise in Fort Lauderdale where it's actually special operations out in the city, flying Black Hawk helicopters, taking people from wherever, lining them up, taking them into lines, preparing them to load up into vans or helicopters to take them to places unknown. Of course, those would be FEMA camps, if you want to use that term, rendition sites or whatever. In other words, what we're seeing here is unconventional warfare and detention operations, extraction and detention operations practiced in America on American citizens in American cities. And if you're going to train as you desire to fight, then this shows what the true intentions of these special operations forces are. Now, I want to point out something, and I think I've done it several times. Yes, Jade Helm is an exercise. However, how many actual hot events have occurred exactly the same as the exercise is going on? I've said these before: 7/7/7 in London, the first World Trade Center bombing in the early 90s, 9/11, and the Boston bombing, just as examples. So merely because there's an exercise going on, first of all, doesn't mean that it's not a danger. And second of all, it could likely be a cover for a live hot operation, so that if they get caught, they can say, well, it's just an exercise. Now, one of the problems with all of this is, and I pointed it out earlier, as have some other commentators, that this is, as it's right in the Jade Helm request for a realistic military training document, that this is unconventional warfare training, okay? And they're using unconventional warfare and asymmetrical tactics. Now, what does that mean? Okay, well, first of all, it's by its very nature admitted to be a psychological operation on the American people. Now, I don't care what the legal aspects of that is. It's immoral and it's unconstitutional to conduct a psyop on the American people. That is an act of war. Okay? It's what it is. It's an act of war whether the American people realize it or not. And the fact that most of them don't realize it show you how insidious this is. So I have a link down below. InfoWars received a video from people that watched this Fort Lauderdale exercise take place with Special Operations Command forces in downtown Fort Lauderdale, unannounced. Unlike Jade Helm, they probably wouldn't have announced Jade Helm publicly if we hadn't found it. Not that it was secret, but the way they embedded it behind firewalls and just not making it public, other than when they went in to talk to the county or city commissions where they planned on doing some of this. But regardless, they didn't make this announcement in Fort Lauderdale. You know, Miami, what, a year and a half ago? Minneapolis before that? Los Angeles before that? How many of these exercises have gone on? And we've said, these people are training as they are going to fight, okay? It's not mount operations. It's not preparing to go overseas. They're training in American cities against Americans. And AP Hill is a perfect example of that in Virginia, where they have an entire mock-up there of an American city. Not a European city, not a Middle Eastern city, an American city. This tells you what's going on. The same thing with what the DHS and the federal government, the military, has said now for several years, that the #1 domestic terrorist threats are vets, Christians, gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, family people, home preppers, whatever they decide it is on today's menu that they don't like. And we saw this happening, at least I did, in the the late 1980s when I went through the terrorism counteraction course at Fort McClellan, Alabama. And what I heard as being defined as terrorists terrified me at the time, that our government would consider people exercising their constitutional God-given rights, not government-granted rights. The government is supposed to protect you in those rights. Exercising their constitutional God-given rights as terrorists. And here we are today. This thing in Fort Lauderdale is very disturbing. I hope you go look at it. The link is down below. We just wanted to get this video out real quick so that people would know what we're aware of. I don't want to say that Jade Helm is anything but an exercise, but I can't, because I understand what psychological operations are, and this is a psyop on the American people, on the military, on the police, on everybody that sees this thing go down and how they react to it. And doing a psychological operation, I'm going to repeat it again, is, whether it's legal or not, it's still unconstitutional, it's still immoral. It is an act of war upon us by our own military. The people that we are paying supposedly to protect us from encroachments of tyranny from around the world. And now they're turning it on us, as a lot of commentators have said they would. So I'm going to stop now. I want Brand to say a couple of things, but this is extremely dangerous, and I want you to understand what is my featured video on this channel. Look at it. It says post a century and lock and load. I'm not saying to do anything offensively, but be prepared to defend yourselves. Do not let them come and get you in the middle of the night, or your friends. Okay, Brent.
Well, I think Roy pretty well covered everything. It's kind of hard to follow all that, but he's 100% correct. And these people deserve, they deserve no trust. Our government has a history of false flags. This has been going on forever. They can monitor this and just see which direction it's going, and they can bail out if they want. If it just looks like it's going to be too difficult for them, the American people are on top of this, they haven't been fooled, they can bail out. However, if these operations go the way they want them to go, they can just keep pushing, and then next thing you know, they're extracting people, putting them in the FEMA camps. There's a possibility of no end in sight for this. So why in the world would you trust a criminal government with this type of operation? If you see somebody getting stuffed in the back of a car, you think it's wrong, you take action, whatever that action may be. You see somebody being assaulted by unknown persons, and somebody gets hurt or killed, well, then they always have the option to come back that these radical people, they killed some military personnel that were doing an operation to protect the American people.
That's why you don't do training on American soil. You can't notify everybody. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was an excellent point that Brand made. And I'm going to give you an historical example. In Texas a few years ago, there was a state trooper that pulled over somebody, and there was a gunfire exchange. A citizen came up, saw this going on, pulled out his rifle, and took out the suspect. Okay? Well, if you have operatives in plain clothes acting like criminals, and they get hurt on this thing. There was a similar situation happen, I think it was in South Carolina, North Carolina a few years ago, where I think a sheriff's deputy was shot or something like that. I'm sorry I'm not up on that. But the point is well taken that Brand's making here, that this is why you don't conduct exercises around the population. You can't get everybody on board, and you shouldn't in the first place. Because what is that other thing that's called in the Constitution, indentured servitude? You're going to pull in the population to be a part of this thing and not pay them for it? That's a form of indentured servitude. You're not serving the military. You're serving an unconstitutional act. You mayors, you city councils need to change your mind about supporting this thing and say, no, we do not want that in our jurisdiction. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
So it really is, any way you look at it, it's a foreign takeover.
And actually Obama said it, and so did the military. We answer to the United Nations, really. Not to the American people. Okay, so Brand's point is well taken here. We don't know who these people are, and secrecy and deceit go hand in hand. If it's open and people know everything that's going on, that's the purpose of an informed electorate. Yeah, some things have to be secret, but with this government, everything's secret. Why? Because it's the source of deceit.
Okay, these are war tactics. This was started by the Patriot Act, and they declared America a war zone. Okay, so
a battle space.
Yeah, a battle space.
A battlefield.
And they've been training like that ever since. Well, they're the ones that set the paradigm. They're the ones that have been training this way. This is the one. They're the people that have making America a battle zone. Spread yourself out. Have everything documented. Videos. I mean, if you get on every street corner just with cameras, that goes a long way in documenting these things. And I would also suggest have these things live streaming. Or something where it can't be erased, like a cloud app. So again, they're the ones that have set this paradigm. They're the ones that have declared it's a battle zone, and they've been operating like that ever since. So if we take action, a perceived threat, what country wouldn't do that when you're looking at an invasion coming down your throat?
They're telling you what they're going to do. All right, they're telling you what they're going to do, whether you realize it or not. It's not training, folks. Oh, it's training, but it's training to tell you what they're going to do. I'd like to say one more thing. I'm going to ask everyone here, and I'm completely serious about this. If you know anything about me, again, prepare. Get your water, get your food, get like-minded people. Post a sentry, lock and load. All of those things are important, okay? Have a place to meet, a rallying point, whatever you need. But most importantly, above all of this, please, whether you believe in a supreme being, God, or not, if you have to meditate and try to connect with everyone else through that, however you want to do it, pray to God that He helps the innocent to overcome this horrible thing that's happening. Number one. And number two, that He will put barriers and obstacles in the way of the evil ones who are trying to do this to our loved ones, our people, and our beloved country.
Well, just to add something to that, if you have a high profile and you're out there and you're letting these people see that you are watching them and you're not going to take it laying down, that will go a long ways in circumventing it, stopping it right there. As Roy said, be completely prepared. Let them know. You know, be out in the open. Let them know we're not going to take this.
And we're watching you.
We're watching you. And just that alone could stop this whole entire thing. We need to stand up and help ourselves, show that we are God's children, that we are freedom-loving, valiant people of God. And if we don't do that, I think they're just going to run over the top of us. And you know, they're going to say, well, as typical, the American people, they don't stand up for everything. They're just a bunch of cowards. And you got grandchildren, you got children, you got your wives, you got all your family members, your neighbors that you need to take into consideration. Do you want your children and grandchildren to grow up under oppression?
Alexander, I was just going to say, Alexander Solzhenitsyn made that exact same statement. He said, if we had been, the fact that we allowed ourselves to go in the camps was our fault. We should have been standing at the doors with hammers, sickles, and every possible weapon we could get our hands on so that the officers knew that they were going to encounter resistance to us. Then that whole atrocity may not have ever happened.
They are depending upon you rolling over and playing dead. But if you just sit back and say, I'm going to trust these people, I'm going to trust my government, you're done. It's over with at that point in time.
And I know in the earlier video, and we'll close with this, I said that, you know, there's really not much we can do with their sophisticated weapon systems, the police state, the surveillance state, and all of that, that it's very difficult. And I said that even with 3 to 6%, we probably couldn't pull it off. And I said that I didn't mean to say that from a defeated point of view. But at the same time that I said that there may not be much we can do, we still have a responsibility to protect our loved ones and our friends and our fellow Americans as far as they will allow us to do so.
So, you know what? Get your heart into it. Remember your families, your children, your grandchildren, your fellow Americans, and take a stand. Stand up for something in your life. Once in your life, stand up for something that is very meaningful. You know, when you reach a time in your life where you think you might not be around that much longer, I'm in my 60s, Roy's in his 60s, you want to be...
Jeff tell me.
You want to be able to say, at least in my life, I took a stand here for righteousness, and I didn't back down, and look what happened. We're still living in a free country, a free nation.
And Theodore Roosevelt said it the best way, if we can end on this. We don't have to be nasty about it. But Theodore Roosevelt said it right. We walk softly, but we carry a big stick.